All right, so before we begin, I would just like to state for the record that today is September 8th, 2023, and my name is Ben Bauman, and I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, speaking via phone with Connie Sipes, who is located in, is it New Albany, Indiana?
That's correct.
And we are doing an interview for the Indiana Legislative Oral History Initiative. So just starting off, when and where were you born?
I was born in New Albany, Indiana, on August the 6th, 1949.
Okay, and what were your parents' names?
My father's name was Carl Wigleb, Weigleb, and my mother's name was Alta, Alta, Wigleb, Weigleb.
And when did your family move to Indiana? Like the first time your family arrived in Indiana, for example, like how long has your family been there?
My parents were both born in Indiana, one in Floyd County, one in Crawford County. So however long ago that was, over 100 years ago.
Oh, okay. And did you have any siblings at all growing up?
Yes, I have a brother. His name is Daniel Wigleb, Weigleb.
And what were your parents' occupations?
My mother was a stay-at-home mom. My father was a firefighter.
And how would you describe your childhood?
Very happy, very stable. I grew up till about age 10, maybe age 9 in public housing, and we moved out of we lived in public housing probably for about 8 or 9 years, and then my parents bought a house in the west end of New Albany, so we were relatively poor, but my childhood was happy. I had very good parents and a good brother.
Yeah, okay. Did you know much about your family's political views growing up?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My father was a union organizer, basically with the fire department, and very, very much a Democrat. My brother was on the city council in New Albany for 20 years. So yeah, we were. My father was very politically active, and I walked in many protests.
Wow. Okay.
As a child, and we had like a tradition on Saturdays. We called it the Wigleb Caucus. My uncles on my dad's side and our immediate family would meet at my parents' house for chili, and every Saturday, it didn't matter if it was 100 degrees out, we had chili. and of course the house wasn't air conditioned, but we'd be sweating and eating chili, but also talking about politics. That was what we did on Saturday.
Okay, sure. So how would you describe your educational experiences growing up?
Well, I went to public schools and graduated from high school in 1967. Went to IUS, Indiana University Southeast, which was at that time located in Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is a neighboring city. And I went there for 2 years and then went to Indiana University Bloomington, graduated in 1971 with an elementary education degree, got a job teaching elementary school, and then went back for my master's, and I'm not sure, maybe graduated with my master's in 1975 from, that was a combination from IUS and IU Bloomington. and then went back in 1989, 1990 for a master's degree in administration, and graduated in 1991 and became a principal.
Yeah, wow, okay. So how did you view the state of Indiana growing up?
I'm sorry, how did I view?
Yeah, like how did you view the state of Indiana growing up? Did you have any sort of sense of what Indiana was like compared to other states in the country, or?
Probably not. I'm not sure I ever really thought about that. I knew political figures like Lee Hamilton, which Congressman Hamilton, which was a very favorable impression. I met Birch Bayh, and that was very favorable. So really, I would say that, and Vance Harkey, they were all Democrats at that time. I met the state senator, which was Frank O'Bannon. So all my views would have been probably that it was a good place, because politically I knew all those people and thought they were good people. I had a very good experience in my education, so that would have been a positive for me. I also had an excellent growing up at the parks system in New Albany and the Parks and Recreation system. And I had excellent park leaders and recreational leaders. And so that was very positive. So I guess my feeling would have been, it would have been very localized, but it was a happy place.
Yeah, that's good. Now, did your awareness of politics change at all in college?
I probably, yes. I became more knowledgeable on my own instead of relying on my father, especially as it related to women's issues and public education.
Okay. Did you ever, like when you were in college at all, did you ever have sort of conflicting views on any issues with your parents or politics in general, or?
Yes. My father was very pro-union, and for the most part I am too. But my dad was so pro-union that they could do no wrong. And I didn't feel that way. I felt like there was some greed on both sides of an issue. When, I would study a strike or something like that, I thought both sides could be dug in and greedy and want this and want that. And so, but my dad was always so pro-union that they were never wrong.
Okay, sure. So, and was this, like, when did you start to develop this? Was this in college or was this later on?
About thinking about office.
Okay.
Is that what you... repeat what you said.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just asking, when did you start to have that kind of divide on that issue? Was it in college or later on?
No, it was probably, it was in college. And then afterwards, after a while, when I was a teacher and involved in our union,
Mm-hmm.
and I became our union president, I saw some things there that I didn't think were necessarily the right thing for unions to be asking for,
Mm-hmm.
or to be promoting. Now, mind you, I saw more on the other side of the administration that I disagreed with more, but I saw some things that I wasn't necessarily fond of on the teacher side.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, When, if at all, did you get married?
I am married. I got married when I was 22, March 25th, 1972.
Okay. And do you have any children?
We have two adult children. Our daughter is Cassie Petroselli. She lives in Zionsville. And our son is Zach Sipes, and he lives in New Albany.
Okay. And how would you say your family influenced your political career?
Well, I would say probably 100%.
Yeah.
That I was very much a daddy's girl, and so he was a huge influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, who I admired greatly, as I said, was a city councilman. So he was a big influence on me as well.
Yeah. So thinking now to when you started to get seriously interested in getting involved in politics, when was that, and what was kind of the major political issues you were focused on?
Well, I really had been involved most of my adult life, working for other candidates, attending events, donating money, calling, that sort of thing. But I didn't really never thought about running for an office until a good friend of mine, whose name was Kathy Smith, was I don't know if you've interviewed her or not.
Yes, actually, yeah.
Kathy Smith Andrews. She was the state senator here, and she and I had worked actively in her campaign, and she resigned her position after Frank O'Bannon was elected governor. He resigned her position to work with him on education issues in his administration. And it just kind of hit me, and I thought, And my father had just died. And I thought, and just a side note, my father was her campaign manager. That's just how politically involved we were with her.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so when she resigned, I just thought, maybe I could do that, and I had to get. I think it's called appointed by a caucus. We had to have a caucus meeting of all of my whole district. All the precinct committee people got together, and I had quite a bit of competition. I think there were like 8 of us, and I campaigned for that with, by going to the precinct people and talking to them, writing them letters, calling them, blah, blah, blah. And I was appointed to that position in January of 1997, and then ran again in 99 on my own.
Okay. And so when was the first time that you ran for the Indiana General Assembly?
That was it, in 1999.
Okay, got it. And did you have a particular campaign strategy at all, or?
Well, yes, I believe, and I still do, I believe in meeting voters face to face. So I went door to door constantly in my whole district, proverbially walking my rear end off. I mean, so, and I did all the usual things. I sent out flyers, I called, I had a core group of people that helped me. But my big strategy was going door to door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Do you remember who yeah.
I tried to do that also, not just at election time, because that always sort of annoyed me that we would only do that around election time. So I would try to do that throughout the 4-year term. I would pick districts to walk during those 4 years, so that it wasn't new to me. I wasn't new to them at election time, and that was very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. Who was your main opponent when you were running for the first time?
The very first time I ran was a woman by the name of Maggie Ridge. And she was a political, I didn't have any primary opponent. That was a general election opponent. She was relatively a novice in politics. I don't think she'd ever run before. And she had been a Democrat, but she turned Republican. And it really turned out to be a pretty solid victory for me.
Yeah, okay. Did you have any particular campaign strategies against them at all, or was it?
No, there wasn't any really negativity or anything. I just focused on the issues that I wanted to work on, basically public education and help for people with special needs and health issues. I just focused on the things that I wanted to do. We didn't get negative, nor did she.
Okay. What did you think of the election process?
Well, I think it's a lot of work if you want to do it right.
Yeah.
I think probably the thing I disliked the most was raising the money, for to get out literature, to get out the vote, that kind of thing. But as far as fairness, I had no qualms about any procedures or anything like that. I thought Floyd County did a great job with that. I didn't have any concerns from that aspect. It's just raising the money is the hard part.
Okay. Yeah. Was it a pretty expensive campaign or what?
Not compared to these days. I think the first campaign, because I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know how powerful my opponent would be. I think I spent like $35,000 and wouldn't have needed to do that. I ran commercials on TV, and I really wouldn't have had have done that.
Okay.
But and then subsequent elections, I didn't spend hardly any. I mean, maybe $10,000 or something like that. I can't remember. I basically remember the first one.
Yeah. Okay. So what was your reaction when you found out that you won the election?
Well, my first reaction when I won the caucus was I really was kind of prepared to lose, because the people that were running in that caucus were pretty active politically. For example, one was the party chair of the Democrat Party in New Albany, Floyd County.
Sure.
And so, that was everyone thought he would win. That district at that time, District 46, my district was Floyd, almost all of Floyd County, and downtown Clark County, and Jeffersonville and Clarksville. And Clarksville is really the one, Clark County is really the county that sent me over that helped me beat the party chair. I really lost I lost by a little bit in Floyd County because of the Floyd County chair, which would make sense that he would win that. But he didn't win it by very many. And Clark County delegates are the ones that put me over. So they would constantly remind me that I was the reason they were there. They were the reason I was there, in a nice way. They were wonderful. But I was kind of shocked that I won. And then, reality sets in and you think, oh God, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Where am I going to live? Am I going to know anybody? And then it became kind of daunting for a week or so. And as I said, I grew up in public housing in the west end of New Albany, and I didn't think I'd know a governor, let alone work with one, So, yeah, it was a little overwhelming. But I adjusted pretty quickly.
Yeah. Did you change your campaign strategies at all for future elections, or was it the same? Or
I didn't spend nearly as much money. The second time I ran, I had an opponent that I knew would not be a major problem, so I didn't have to spend much money on that.
Okay.
And the third time I ran, I'm trying to remember who ran against me. I can't even remember. But I won most of my elections by a pretty good margin. 65% or so.
Sure. What were you thinking when you walked into the State House for your first official day in office?
Well, I was overwhelmed, and I distinctly remember that. My mother was with me, and my brother, and my father had just passed away. So my dad died on November 30th. Had he not died, I probably would not have run, because he would not have wanted. He was very politically active with other people, and as I said, the previous state senator was Kathy Smith. He was her campaign chairperson and believed in her wholeheartedly, but he wouldn't have wanted me to run because, he'd be afraid they'd talk about me or, all that. He'd be very protective.
Right.
He would have been very protective. But I just can remember feeling overwhelmed, grateful, all those emotions, sad because my dad wasn't there to see, because my dad had run for this seat. I'm going to say in the 80s, maybe late 80s, early 90s, he'd run for this seat. And so, that was kind of a full circle thing. Another person that went with me, which I thought, I look back on how interesting this was my sixth grade teacher.
Wow.
He went with me to be sworn in, and we always remained very close. From the sixth grade on, he followed me through junior high and high school, and anything I did good, he'd take credit for it. Anything I did bad, he didn't know me. And so then when I became a teacher, he was a principal, and so we worked in the same school corporation. And he went with me to celebrate. So I was scared. I was anxious. I was overwhelmed. I was proud, but I was confused. I was scared. Really, probably scared was the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and thinking, and I think women have this kind of issue. But, thinking I'm not smart enough to be there, these people are all smarter than me, What were you thinking, Connie? You really can't do this. And I've thought that. I've fought those kinds of things, self-esteem issues, my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe lots of people do. I suspect they do, but I think particularly women do. And so yeah, I had to work through those, and I soon discover in many situations that's not true. I'm as smart as they are. I'm as good as they are, but poverty can sometimes do that to you. You know, it makes you feel like you're not as smart as or good as,
right,
which isn't true. You have to talk yourself through that.
Right. So at what point did you really start to feel comfortable then in the General Assembly?
That's an excellent question, because it took some time.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it took me 2 or 3 years to feel really comfortable and be myself and just talk the way I want to express myself, you know, and not have to think about every little word I said. I'm going to say it was a good 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I can remember the first time I spoke on the floor, and they had that horrible ceremony that they do, or tradition, where your first bill, they get up there and the opposition will get up there, and my bill was interesting enough, it was about the Indiana Library. It was really a very not a big deal, you know. It was just some kind of function that the library needed to have done. It was not it was not a conflicting bill at all.
Right.
And they started asking me. I can remember Senator Borst, who was at that time the financial person, and he was very influential. And you know, I saw him walk up, and I thought, oh my God! And they just make up questions to ask you and to make you feel stupid. You know?
Wow.
And I can remember thinking, oh my God, I mean, my neck broke out, and I think I broke out in big whelps and thought I was going to pass out. You know, that's how nervous I was. But they think that's funny. You know, I didn't think it was too funny, but they do it to everyone.
Yeah.
And the Democrats do it too. When there's a new Republican, the Democrats get up and just make up stupid questions to ask.
Yeah, so I guess some sort of legislative hazing, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ben. That's a good way to describe it.
Interesting. Okay. So what were your expectations for the legislative process when you first started, and was it more or less complicated than you expected?
Well, it was more complicated because, I mean, I think I understood the textbook process of the first reading, the second reading, but understanding how you get a bill heard, the ins and outs of who I had to talk to. Being in the minority was also a daunting task, and I was always in the minority. I never served in the legislature when the Democrats were. Now, they were in the House. The Democrats were in control in the House. But in the Senate, when I was there were like 18 of us. And so we were always in the minority. And you felt like you kind of had to beg to get a bill heard. And so we didn't get very many bills heard.
Yeah.
So that was a part of the process that I was really pretty naive about that. I don't think I realized the majority controlled everything. You know, who was on committees. They always had more people on committees than the Democrats. The chairperson was always a Republican because they were in control. I'm not sure I knew all of that. I guess you would say the political workings of the process. I knew I knew the process, but not the political workings of the process as well as I certainly soon learned.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that may be something that you have to live through, you have to know it,
Right. Do you remember the first bill that you sponsored or authored?
Yes, I do. It's the one that I previously talked
Oh, that's
to you
right.
about.
Yep.
It was something about the organization of the Indiana State Library.
Okay. Got it. How often would you say you ended up, working with Republicans on legislation when you served?
Well, I guess, you could. There were times when, your committee work, that's what you're doing. You would, we would have a bill and we would the Democrats would try to get input into that bill, things that we thought would make an improvement. So you're trying constantly to work with the other side to get a piece of legislation that you think would make it better if you were added this. Now, as far as practically how often I did that and if it ever had an impact, like when a Republican would come and say, Connie, I'd really like to have your help on this, and we can do this bill together. That doesn't happen very often.
Okay.
It didn't happen to me very often, but I don't know. I'm going to say once a session that may happen, where you have an opportunity to really work with the other side to put a bill together.
Sure.
And a lot of that would be on the side, like, they all knew that when I went to the legislature, I was a principal. And so they all knew that. And they would ask me what I thought about, they recognized that public education was my forte. So they would ask me questions about, well, what would this do? What do you think about that? Sometimes it would just be very informal. Other times it would be more of the legislative process. But the informal talking about bills would be more often than the formal.
Okay. So what would you say then was the relationship like between Republicans and Democrats when you served?
For the most part, I would say that we had good relationships, especially with certain ones or more. You figured out who was more moderate and who, on both sides, who could work together the most. But for the most part, I have to say I had a pretty healthy respect for most of the Republicans that I served with.
Okay.
And I think that was kind of true. I think it was true for them as well. They had a healthy respect for most of the individuals, but it wasn't going to get in the way of who was in charge.
Okay.
It was definitely the majority was in charge, and you knew that.
Right.
But as far as personal relationships, for the most part, I think they were pretty respectful.
Yeah, okay.
Now, there were some, on the Republican side that I thought even then were over the top for me. They were way too conservative. But for the most part, they were pretty moderate at that point.
Okay. So do you think that relationship then between the two parties remained the same throughout your political career, or did it change near the end of it, or?
I saw it getting more divisive toward the end of my career, which was I chose not to run in 2010. So by the time that it got to 2010, I was seeing more divisiveness.
Okay.
And even I should say, Ben, even back in the day, even before then, although we had a pretty positive relationship, there would be some tense moments.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like toward the end of the session when you're trying to get stuff done and trying to get a point across, and there would be some times when we would get angry with one another. You know, I mean, they're not on the floor, but you know, I'm sure they said, "Oh God, she's so far out," or "He's wrong," or you know, as I did too. But there were some tense moments, but in general, it was pretty respectful.
Yeah.
But back to your question, yes, I saw it getting more divisive the longer I was there.
Right. How influential would you say party leadership was?
Very influential.
Okay.
I think at the time Bob Garton was the president of the Senate, and I think he loved that institution, and he was very influential in what bills got heard and the organization of the whole thing. And then you had very powerful committee chairs like Senator Boers, Senator Lovers, who was the head of the education. They basically, I felt like they drove the agenda.
Okay. Yeah. And at some point, you had kind of a Democratic Party leadership role at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was the caucus chair.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how much influence I had, but
okay.
As a caucus chair, but really what I saw on our side and our leadership was as influential as they could be with the Democrats too. I thought, I don't know, I wasn't in the Republican caucus. I thought we were more inclusive, and I thought the Democrats got more of an opinion. There were sometimes I would say to our caucus, you know, there's 18 of us, but there's 22 opinions here, you know. And I mean, we could be all over the place, and I felt like the Republicans were pretty much in lockstep where we weren't. But our leadership was influential in how we would conduct ourselves and what opposition we wanted to put forward, and in the caucus, I really wouldn't say I had that much influence, but I would say the longer you're there, the more influence you have. It's really, I mean, our minority leader was certainly influential, but he was very inclusive, and he always wanted to get everyone's opinion. That was Senator Young, and then Senator Simpson became the leader when I was there too, and she was very influential, very knowledgeable, very smart, very articulate, but she was also inclusive. She wanted everyone's opinion on things. So I don't know. That's just my perspective. I don't think the Republican caucus was as inclusive with its members as the Democrats were.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know if that's true. I just know that was my perception.
Yeah, okay.
We always would say, Ben, we were like herding cats.
Okay.
The Democrats, we were like herding cats.
So did you feel like that was politically, not sort of disadvantage then, given?
Yes.
Okay.
There were times it politically was a disadvantage, but individually, you had to respect people to be true to themselves or to their district. I will say, here's a good comparison. I was very close to Senator Earlene Rogers, a very good friend of mine when I was there. And she's from Gary. Well, Gary politics was a whole lot more liberal than Southern Indiana Democrats. Yeah. And so, we had those issues. I didn't see that so much in the Republican Party, but I see that in the Democrat. I see it even now. But that was an example. And Billy Breaux, I was very close to Billy Breaux, and they were just more liberal than me because I would think because of where they lived and what their experiences were different than mine.
Yeah.
And sometimes that made it difficult when I felt like I would have to represent my constituents in a way that they felt was way too conservative. It's like the Southern Democrats. You've heard all about that in the South, and how much more conservative the Southern Democrat states were than the Northern Democrat states. It's the same thing in Indiana. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So, given then how kind of a broad group of people made up the Indiana Democratic Party when you were serving, how do you think that has impacted sort of the competitiveness of the party in elections, over the course of your career and since then?
Well, I don't know. It must have had a negative impact because I don't know whether they have 8 or 9 Democrats in the Senate now. I mean, the whole dynamics has changed, and I think our state has become even more conservative. I mean, back in my day, when I was younger, we had two U.S. senators that were Democrats. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We haven't had a Democrat senator since Frank O'Bannon. I mean, a Democrat governor since Frank O'Bannon. And I think the state has become more conservative, or the party. I don't know. I guess there's a whole bunch of reasons why parties have become more. The Republican Party seems to represent the state of Indiana more than I'm happy about. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Right now, and the way things are right now, I honestly feel I have no representation on the state level.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty lopsided towards one party these days.
It is, and then the way they've got the districts, the way they redrew the districts. Yeah, it seems bizarre to me. Like my district, which was the 46th district, which took in all of Floyd County, almost all of Floyd County, and basically the city part of Clark County. That was the consistency of the 46th district, and it was very alike. New Albany and Jeff were alike. Clarksville right in there. Urban area, south of Louisville, that kind of thing. Now, New Albany, which is a urban area, is in with. I don't understand it. We're in with Corden and Salem, which are rural areas, and I'm in District 45 now instead of 46, and 46 goes all the way up to Indianapolis.
Okay. Yeah.
And I feel totally unrepresented in the State House.
Yeah.
Politically, I feel unrepresented, and I also feel that way. How should I say that? As a representative, I don't feel like I don't even know my state senator. I mean, I know who he is. I know the name, but I've never seen him.
Mm-hmm.
And that is alien to me because the person who took my place was a Republican, and his name was Ron Grooms, and I would see Ron everywhere.
Yeah.
Because of the way the district was organized, and now it's organized totally different. And I feel unrepresented politically, but I also feel unrepresented district-wise. I don't feel like I have anything in common or much in common with who I've been thrown in with.
Okay, sure. Was the redistricting process like that when you were serving as well, or?
No, when I was serving, I thought we did well. I was never on that because the majority party does that, but I can remember Senator Miller, drawing the map. She was instrumental in that, and she would come and talk to people and talk to Democrats and say, well, what about this? And how do you feel about that? And does this make sense to move these people here and this precinct there? And I mean, now I don't know what happened the last time, but that they redrew. But I can tell you this: Ron Grooms, who was the state senator, was livid, and he's a Republican, and it was his party that did what they did, and he was livid with the maps.
Okay. Wow.
So I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah. Let's see. Shifting gears a bit, then, how influential would you say lobbyists were?
Well, they were really not that influential with me.
Okay.
I might go to them for some information, but I can't think of a time that a lobbyist. Well, really, I can't. I didn't think they were pushy. I didn't think they were aggressive. I got maybe would use them to get some information about something, but they were part of the process in testimony and stuff like that. And but as far as individually, a lot of influence on me, not so much.
Yeah. Okay.
When I used a lobbyist was when it was a totally issue that I knew nothing about, which, I mean, you can't know all there is to know about everything, although maybe some legislators think they do. But I would use them just to get more information on a subject.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say were the most controversial legislative issues when you served?
Abortion.
Okay.
Vouchers. Mm-hmm. And charter schools.
Okay.
And insurance mandates could become controversial too.
So it sounds like, especially abortion in charter schools is still something that comes up a lot today. are the issues basically being debated the same way today as they were when you served, or?
I don't know. I've not watched any of the debates really, but I would think they have a lot more rancor in them now than we did. Although that could get pretty testy. Those issues, and abortion had been around for a while, so you were kind of used to that one and knew what to expect there, and where the Republicans were at that, where they were intellectually on that. But the charter schools and the voucher program was under Mitch Daniels, and that was all new. And so, new to Indiana. And so that became a really controversial issue.
Okay, sure.
Especially, well, I don't know. I started to say especially charter schools, but really they were both really very highly toxic to me, both of them, because I'm a public school advocate. Yeah. And that I saw that even though charter schools in Indiana are public, they don't have the same accountability that public schools, traditional public schools do. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't sit well. And it was taking money from traditional public schools and putting it into charter schools, which were also public, but they could also deny students, so I don't consider that public. And the voucher program, of course, took money from the state of Indiana, from the public school. So, yeah, those were the biggies.
Yeah. Okay.
And then one of the ones that was another very controversial bill was Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, it was hilarious. People would get up. They didn't want to change the time, the time and Central Time versus Eastern Time and daylight savings time. And oh my God, people came from everywhere to testify against it. I can remember one man got so upset he had a clock shop and he had like thousands of clocks and he didn't want to have to turn his clocks up and back. It was, funny, what we get crazy about. We don't want to change anything.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, some of those issues that seem very subtle, but I guess impact everyone to a certain extent. So people get fired up about it.
Right, they do. It was, we're having a billion-dollar budget, and there's not nearly as many people there to testify on that as there is on, do you want to turn your clock up or back,
Yeah. Yeah. Priorities, I guess.
Yes, right.
Let's see, I was going through some newspapers. I saw that there were some debates you were involved in with like school funding. I guess, was that pretty common issue throughout your time?
Right, yeah. That was a part of the budget debate, and I was always arguing for more funding for public education. And then, that led to the charter school being against that because it took money away, and the vouchers and all of that was hand in glove.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, I saw something about like bullying legislation. Do you remember that?
Bullying? Did I have that?
I saw that you were involved with some type of legislation regarding bullying in schools, I guess.
Well, that would make sense, but I don't. I'm sorry, Ben. I don't really recall.
That's okay. If it's not very memorable, then it's probably not like a huge thing to talk about. So
yeah, we talked about bullying. I will say that's become a much more talked about topic since I've left there, and in the world. But with the kids getting on so many on the screen all the time, and all the things they can do, all their devices and stuff, that was not as prominent as it is now. And so it wasn't, I remember certainly talking about bullying, but it wasn't as big and as important an issue as it is now.
Right. Okay. Let's see. So, why did you end up leaving the Indiana General Assembly?
Well, I was tired. I was. It's difficult to pack up and leave for a week and go live in Indianapolis and then come home. That lifestyle that can get kind of tedious and daunting. I was getting older. I had grandchildren. That was probably the main reason. I'd had 2 grandsons that were born while I was there, and so I wanted to spend more time with them. My husband was getting ready to retire. I had already retired from the school system, and he was getting ready to retire. My mother had passed, but just living life was much more difficult, and I wanted to spend time with my grandkids, basically. Plus, I didn't want to run another campaign and raise money.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's understandable. I'm sure that can get tiring after a while.
Yeah. I miss it though. I mean, it wasn't easy for me. It was. I miss being involved and I miss doing it, but basically, to answer your question more succinctly, I wanted to spend more time with my grandkids, and I didn't want to have to raise the money to run another race.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
And I guess, I don't know, I guess there was a little part of me that saw a switch, because in 2010, which is the year I chose not to run, we lost a lot of seats in the South to Republicans. I don't know if it was the backlash of Obama, which I think it was. But Paul Robertson lost, and he'd been in the House he was from Corden. He lost. He'd been in the House for 30 some odd years. And Richard Young lost. And I could have lost. And I maybe saw that. I'm usually not that smart, but maybe I saw that. I don't know.
Okay. So how would you summarize overall then your time as a state legislator?
I loved it. I met some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. I met that I'm still friends with. I felt like I may have contributed something to make Indiana and my community a better place. I learned so much from so many people. It was it was just a privilege to serve, and I felt like the legislature probably did a whole lot more for me than I did for them, but it was a wonderful experience for me.
Yeah, okay. Do you have like a proudest moment from your time serving?
Yeah, I have a bill that was very, I'm very proud of. It was called the Next of Kin. And just it was an essence of how democracy works and how people should have an input into their government. One Sunday afternoon, I was at home sitting at the kitchen table working really on legislation stuff. And the phone rang. I answered it. It was a woman, and her last name well, I'll leave that alone. She identified herself, and she told me that she was the mother of a woman who had just been killed in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and her daughter was killed by her husband, and he is horrible, Ben. He killed his wife and his child, and he mutilated them, put them in a bin, and poured bleach on them.
Jeez.
It's horrible. And she was telling me her issue was, other than trying to survive this, that she could not bury her daughter because her husband, was the next of kin.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and he was in jail because, for allegedly doing this. They hadn't proven it yet. But he was not going to let her bury her daughter because, number one, he was next of kin, and he was waiting for the insurance to come through. And he thought he still had a shot at that, obviously he was deranged,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she was telling me how unfair that was, and how, it's just the final insult, to a gruesome situation.
Yeah.
So, we got this bill together. She came up and testified, and we got it through. And as I recall, it's if the next of kin is suspected of killing the person, you can go to the next person in order to make the arrangements for funeral.
Okay, yeah.
So, first of all, I'm proud of that because it was the right thing to do. And second of all, because it was, it just demonstrated how people can be involved in their democracy.
Right.
And it was just a simple phone call that she made.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really didn't have much to do with, that I thought demonstrated democracy that was rewarding to me, was, and you may be familiar with French Lick.
Yep.
And, French Lick has the huge hotel. And at that time, this is, another interesting thing. We had gambling in Indiana, but the boats, they had to be on the water.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure I ever really understood that, but in order to pay your slot machines, you had to be on the river.
Yeah.
But okay. And anyway, but in French Lick, in order to make that hotel thrive and be able to continue to be open, they wanted a casino. And of course, there's no river around French Lick. So they were lobbying. Now, here's a time when to me, the lobbyists were influential. I would have probably voted for it anyway, but I love these people. They were the salt of the earth, and they were just common folk from Orange County. And they wanted the casino so they'd have jobs. And Orange County is where French Lick is. It's one of the poorest counties in Indiana.
Okay.
And they wanted jobs there, so they wanted this casino. And they would come every day, Ben, and put something on your desk that was orange, because they were from Orange County.
Oh my gosh.
It could be an orange, a piece of fruit. You'd find it on your desk. Orange crackers, those like you get 6 in a pack.
Yeah.
Okay, they would be on your desk. Tic Tacs, orange Tic Tac, a lollipop, and it was just, and they would be there every day.
Yeah.
Every single day, trying to get and talking to legislators and telling them how much they needed that casino and they got it passed. And they built a moat. Oh my God, it's just some of the dumbest things we do. they built a moat around the casino so it would be on the water.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, yeah. And but now they have taken away the moot, so but yes, that was one of the times that you saw democracy at work. It was beautiful. It was heartwarming to see regular folks just coming up and trying to do something to get to get their jobs, to get their community to be better, and that was a good time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see then. Last few questions here. What advice would you give to future legislators or even current legislators?
Well, I just wish we got along better, and I wish that I believe, mind you, I'm a staunch Democrat, but I believe that we need a strong two-party system to have better government. Mm-hmm. No one has all the ideas, and we need to respect one another enough to have input from everyone on legislation that makes it even better. So that would be my advice. I wish we could, I wish that we would operate like that. Even if you're in the majority, let the minority help too, because we've got some good ideas. And plus, I don't know, I think it's like 46,000 people. 146,000 people vote in a Senate race. There's 146,000 constituents in your area for a Senate seat. That used to be what it was. I don't know what it is now, around that number. So those 146,000 people need to have some representation as well. So we need to work together. That would be my advice.
Yeah. Okay.
And it'd be a better world.
Yeah. What, in your opinion, is the most important job of the Indiana General Assembly?
Well, to me, the most important job is the senator or is the representative. I think they have an opportunity to do some really good stuff for people and to help people. Another thing that I was very proud of, when you're in the minority, like we talked about earlier, you might not get all the bills that you want, like heard or passed or whatever, but you can do a whole lot for people constituency-wise. People would call and they needed this or they needed that, and getting through all those agencies. And I was probably the proudest of my constituency work. I could run interference for people and do some things for them. Unfortunately, which isn't right, but if you call and say, "This is Connie Sipes, state senator, I'd like to know why so-and-so is not receiving a phone call back from you all," well, then suddenly they get a phone call. So you can do those kinds of things that help. So I think it's the personal representative that's the most important.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Last question then. What do you want the people of Indiana to know about their influence on the General Assembly?
Well, it's like it's like what I told you about the situation of the bill of next of kin. If you have a real issue, call your legislator and talk to them about it. I mean, there may be a fix. There may be an opportunity to do something that's very constructive that not only helps you, the constituent, but will help someone else. That bill that we were talking about, next of kin, we had another situation just recently, like a year ago, where, and it just so happened it was a friend of mine whose spouse shot his wife, And he would not have been able to bury his daughter if it hadn't been for that bill.
Yeah, true.
So, and that woman who called me on that fateful Sunday, she's the one that did that. She's the one that helps many, many, many people because of her situation. So everyone has that opportunity. Pick up the phone if you've got an issue and call your legislator. They might be able to help you. And then in turn, you're helping other people in the state.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the way it's supposed to work, and it really does work.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Well, is there anything that I did not ask about that you wanted to mention?
Well, if I can just say one thing, this is kind of facetious, but it's something that just happened that I had to chuckle about. And I told you I'm a staunch Democrat, so I think the Democrats are usually much more progressive and much more ahead of Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say in 2004, 2005, around that area, you might want to research this. The Democrats had a public education plan. And one of the things that was in that plan was the Imagination Library. And we wanted the state of Indiana to fund the Imagination Library. And what that is, in case you're not familiar with it, is Dolly Parton's, it's her plan or her program for literacy. And what she does is provide a book for every child under the age of 5.
Oh,
in
yes.
Your county. And it's a great program. And the book, gymnastic books, and they're the best quality. They're wonderful. Well, we wanted the state of Indiana to do that for all the kids in Indiana would get a book every month till they turn 5, from birth till 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the legislature just passed that this year.
Yeah.
Of course, they wouldn't listen to it when it was us doing it and the Democrats. And it took 18 more years for them to do this. And I don't know. I think I can't remember how much they cost, but they just had a big unveiling of this at the state library.
Yep.
For the Imagination Library. And I just thought it was interesting that we were that far ahead of them.
Yeah, funny how those things work.
Yeah, isn't it? And I'm sure they've got some issues that they could say the same thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for taking part in the project and doing an interview. So.
Well, I'm just sorry it took so long, Ben. I really enjoyed it. It brought back some good memories, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
okay. All right. Thanks,
all
Ben.
right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.